Welcome back to Weekends with Alex Witt. As a handful of GOP hopefuls set their sights on New Hampshire this weekend, the party is still dealing with the fallout over Donald Trump's comments about undocumented Mexican immigrants. And despite losing business deals from companies like Macy's and NBC Universal, which is the parent company of MSNBC, Trump is surging in the polls in key states like Iowa and New Hampshire. NBC's Kelly O'Donnell is in Gorham, New Hampshire for us. And Kelly, with a happy holiday morning to you. Any Trump sightings where you are?
Well, Alex, happy holidays to you as well. And we are in the North Country of New Hampshire, and Donald Trump is not here. In fact, he's nowhere on the campaign trail for this holiday weekend. And as a declared presidential candidate, that is kind of unusual, because a federal holiday like this, when the public is out and they're in a mood for celebration, is really a prime work day for presidential candidates who can try to sell themselves when people are in a mood to celebrate and feeling patriotic. But Trump is off the trail. In New Hampshire today, though, there will be a number of other candidates, Clinton, Bush, Rubio, Christie, marching in parades. But the one that's being talked about, nowhere to be seen. While Hillary Clinton was thinking summer holiday,
It's 4th of July, you gotta get some ice cream.
and Chris Christie was greeting elderly veterans, Donald Trump is not campaigning this weekend, but launched his own fireworks. New fallout from his claims about illegal immigrants.
They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists.
As a political defense, Trump is seizing on Wednesday's random attack of a California woman, 32-year-old Catherine Steinle. In a statement, Trump calls her murder a totally preventable act of violence committed by an illegal immigrant, and claims, "I am the only one that can fix it. Nobody else has the guts to even talk about it." Trump's talk has already cost him lucrative business relationships, and national Republicans may pay a price.
When you have a high-profile political figure in your party saying enormously controversial things like that, you're damaging the brand.
But Christie disagrees.
I think in the end, voters will judge our party by who we nominate, not by who runs.
Polls show Trump near the top of the pack. On radio, conservative blogger Eric Erickson says that's about more than Trump's fame.
Let me tell you why Trump is doing well. Because he's saying the stuff that people think.
Ted Cruz, in an interview for Meet the Press, said Trump is fighting a worthy cause.
I salute Donald Trump for focusing on the need to address illegal immigration. The Washington cartel doesn't want to address that.
And so some of the Republican candidates are not looking for a fight, but former New York Governor George Pataki has tried to get himself in the conversation by shining a light on Trump's comments, urging other Republicans to denounce him. So this has been going on for days now. So out on the trail, I had a chance to spend some time with Chris Christie, and I asked him more about this Trump issue. He said that voters have only really asked him about it because he comes from New Jersey, assuming they know each other, and they do. Christie tells me they've been friends for about 13 years or so, and he likes Donald Trump but disagrees with his comments. And so when I asked him about the impact of Trump's place in the race and the sort of temperament he has shown and the comments about illegal immigration, here's what Christie had to say.
With the Republican field so broad and some questioning whether Donald Trump is harming your brand, and you've done a lot to try to attract Latino voters to your campaign in the past, what price do you think his presence in the race may cost Republicans?
I don't think any. First of all, gosh, I feel like I've been answering this question, like since Friday, right? I mean, I think there's a little bit too much emphasis on it. I mean, those of us who feel strongly about it have said our piece about it. I have, and others have, about the inappropriateness of the comments and how I just don't think they have any place in this race. But beyond that, what more are you going to say? And I think in the end, voters will judge our party by who we nominate, not by who runs. In the end, I think we're going to nominate somebody that is going to be able to be inclusive and reach out to a lot of constituencies that maybe we haven't attracted as well before.
And so one of the dynamics on the campaign trail is declared presidential candidates want to talk about themselves, their own ideas, their relationship with voters. Very often they don't want to get into skirmishes with somebody else. Not at this stage and not over these sorts of issues, especially with Donald Trump, who has never held elective office. So he's in a different sort of category in terms of how these candidates sort of interact professionally. But he has made noise and he has gotten attention, and those poll numbers give a lot of people pause. Part of that may in fact be his fame from years of being a larger-than-life mogul, and part of it may have to do with some of the ideas. In talking with voters, there are some who say he is not beholden to any financial interest because of his own wealth, and he does say what he thinks, and so they're attracted to that. At this stage in the campaign, that may be something that will draw people in and look at the race and look at the field. We'll have to see. But Trump is making an impact, even though, Alex, he's not on the campaign trail and has no public events yet scheduled for the next several days. Alex?
All right. Well, there is no doubt that he trumps all the others with name recognition. Pun intended, and I apologize. Okay, Kelly, good to see you. Thanks.